you ready? A couple things. Okay, can we call the meeting to order then? And present, we have 4 trustees, and trustee Noreen Willingham is on Zoom. Am I correct, Noreen?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, the first thing is approval of the minutes for November 10th, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Did you have any comments?
I sent you that comment, so if you make that change, great if you didn't.
If you would like to make a comment, I mean, talk about it here or.
It's just a clarification of the November minutes. Don't have them here in front of me, but there was, I think, in the second to last paragraph, the last sentence, there was a continuation of a discussion that we had about the open trustee position. And in the minutes, it's noted that I suggested that we give it some more time for people to submit for that opening. And Jean, I believe you also commented on that and agreed with that. And then there's a comment, something to the effect that Ms. Winningham, Noreen, said people are tired and have other commitments. And the comment I sent to Richard was, you know, we all know that in the meeting, the context of that was Noreen said people are tired and have other commitments. She said that in the context of the pandemic and that members of our community may be tired and have other commitments.
Right.
And therefore, we have not received as many submissions for the open trustee position as we might have in the past. And I just suggested to Richard, others who are not in that meeting might not understand who the people are that are referred to there that are tired and have other commitments. And so just to rephrase that, Richard, I don't know if you have it. Can you read my suggestion?
Yes, so Mira suggested changing that one line, the last sentence of the second to last paragraph, to Ms. Winningham added that during this time of the pandemic, community members may be tired and have other commitments, and this may be affecting the number of submissions for the open board position. I think that accurately reflects. But Noreen, if you have any comments.
No, that's better. Thank you.
Just,
I missed that, so thank you, Mira.
Motion to approve as amended then.
Okay, a second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Noreen? Okay.
Aye.
You gotta say it. Your hand goes off screen.
Okay.
Okay, next review of the closed session minutes. And Jean has, what, 4?
3.
3?
That I would propose could be open. People are okay.
And would you go through those at one at a time and explain what the,
What the issue was
yeah,
without
what the issue was?
going into all the details since we
Right.
haven't opened them yet. All right, so
We can also go into closed session if the board would like.
I don't think we,
Okay.
we're in agreement that should be open.
So sort of from the top down, the July 14, 2021 closed session had to do with, we discussed whether considering changing attorneys, which we have subsequently done. So I don't know that we would keep those in closed minutes since that's already changed.
What was the date again?
July 14, 2021.
I just want to make a comment about, I need to check with our attorneys about the OMA rules about if the board opens those minutes in terms of the written minutes, does that automatically open up the recordings of all those closed sessions too? And I think there were some things, maybe sensitive, confidential things said in the meetings that we may want to make sure we're okay with completely opening up.
As in, somebody's going to re-listen to the whole session?
I mean, if someone could possibly request that, so. I just want to make sure that the board understands that.
Well, when do we, destroy the
So we have one actually on the agenda for tonight. It's, Susie, it's every 18 months, right? So,
Okay,
So wait 18 months.
wait 18 months, I guess that's the suggestion.
All right. I'm going to move on to the next one, which is December 9th, 2020. So this is only 12 months. And that's that the board discussed the appointment of a trustee. Again, the minutes don't even name who was discussed. And obviously that's been filled in subsequently.
You know, Gene, I'm thinking just in the interest of time, a lot of these ones that you're going to bring up may have the same comment that Richard did so well, just to make sure that we know moving forward.
All right, well, then the last one is 2 years, so we don't run into that. October 16th, now there were 2 for October. So October 16th, 2019, saying that we discussed security procedures in the high school student lounge, which was the old lounge, which no longer exists. So again, it's over 2 years old, so there's no tapes, there's no issue as in it's a completely different floor, it's been moved, so it's a moot point. So I would argue that
I don't object to opening that.
Just to ask the follow-up, so there's no particular security procedures that we would not want to be made?
All of those would probably be irrelevant anyway,
Yeah.
because the building has changed.
Has changed so much, right?
Yeah.
As you said, yeah.
Yeah, we're at a different spot.
and things were incorporated into the new design.
Right.
Mhm,
Our concerns were incorporated in new design.
mhm.
So I would move we open up that 1 minute from October 16th, 2019.
Did we have a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
That
Aye.
was it. Because I can wait till next year.
Okay, and then as to the
Shebnam, did you say aye?
remaining,
I did, you did.
as to the remaining minutes, they shall remain closed because no one has moved to open them. Am I correct? Okay.
Do you need a motion to keep those closed?
Yes, could I have a motion to keep the remaining minutes closed?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Second,
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 That's a 5-6 nothing. I'm
What
sorry.
is our process now? How often are we reviewing those and where are we reviewing those?
They are reviewed biannually and so this will come up again in June.
If we completed everything we have to do at the minutes,
We have to, there's one approval of destruction of audio recording of May 8th.
oh, okay. Okay, can we give a motion to approve destruction of the audio recording of the May 8th, 2019 meeting, previously closed session, which it was open. So the session has been opened and we want to destroy the audio recording. I have a motion to destroy the audio recording, May 8th, 2019.
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes 6-0. Okay, are we done with the minutes? Okay.
Just a comment for when this comes up again in June. In the past, we had, in paper form, we had the minutes, the closed minutes that are questioned, so we could review all of those. Now, it's, I guess, more piecemeal to go through and find them all and read them.
They should all be grouped in a folder or closed minutes for review.
Okay.
Yeah. But we can certainly print copies.
You don't have to, but maybe before the June meeting, just to reference that folder, to
Okay,
direct
sure.
trustees to that folder.
Fine, yeah.
That would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any observers who have made comments or wish to?
We have one observer, but she's our auditor and she'll make a comment. She's here for a specific reason,
Okay.
so, yeah.
No comment?
Not
Not
yet.
yet.
Okay,
And Susie, we didn't have any.
No.
okay, next is the director's report on page 4.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all. So the roofing project is progressing very well. We had a good stretch of favorable weather, and the contractors are doing a great job. I just was on the roof 2 days ago with our consultant, Tom Hutchinson, and Andy Garcia, our building services manager, and was showing me the progress that was being made. We're on schedule to complete the project in this month. It'll be sometime between December 17th and the second to last week of December. So I'm very happy to report that. The third floor master planning, we had some good meetings with Andrew Berman and his associate Alex McLean, and lots of staff participated in those meetings. We went across the entire floor, met with all the departments, and now they're doing their work to kind of synthesize all that information and hopefully work on some preliminary first drafts of their thoughts of what might be workable. And so we'll meet with them next week to discuss that virtually, and then I'm assuming he'll be back sometime in January to kind of do further work and have more discussions. And then once we have a draft of the drawings that feels refined enough, I'm sure we'll bring that to the board for an update. Just wanted to mention Skokie Cares. As you may recall, Skokie Cares is that group of community leaders that came together years ago to come up with that lawn sign campaign. Skokie welcomes everyone, and since then we've worked on the community seed cohorts. We've been meeting regularly, but we decided to have a brief hiatus, basically of just taking a little break. But we discussed the idea of having another roundtable, so to speak, of intergovernmental units, kind of all the taxing bodies in Skokie coming together and just sharing ideas and kind of sharing updates and seeing how we can work together to better serve the community. And so Susie and I will be working on that, getting that meeting together, and we'll host and kind of organize that first meeting in January. So I'm excited to, hopefully we'll have a good turnout. I attended the village tax levy ordinance presentation on November 15th, and that was the first reading, and there were no questions for the library's portion of the levy. It's usually the case, but I went anyway just to make sure I was there if there were any questions. Last December 6th, earlier this week, they did approve the ordinance through a second reading and adoption. So the levy is officially approved. And last, I just wanted to mention, as I said here in my director's report, and I sent an email out to the board as well. I was really happy to see our renovation project so prominently featured in Library Journal's architecture issue on the cover article there. So it's not the cover itself, but the cover article, and it's a nice big picture of our redesigned staircase and the central lobby area, and also the picture of the east lobby. So it was really nice to see us being mentioned among such great projects. So, yeah, that's it.
Any questions or comments?
Bravo.
Okay. Okay, next is the November 2021 disbursement report. Questions or comments on the bill?
Nope.
Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the November 2021 disbursement?
So motion.
Second,
second,
okay, and we have to do individually. Michelle?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes,
Yes?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, and Noreen?
yes,
Okay, that passes 6-0. Next is approval of the roofing project payment. Begins on page 16. I think
Begins on 23.
23, I'm sorry. That is in the amount of $515,929.50. Any questions or comments on the roofing project pay application? Okay, hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the contractor's application for payment in the amount of $515,929.50. $929.50. Okay, you have a motion?
so moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Michelle?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
yes,
Sorry. Okay. That passes. Next
I'm
is,
very glad to know that the roofing project is on schedule and will be done, it sounds like this month.
Yes.
That's great.
okay, next is the consent agenda. Questions or comments on the consent agenda, beginning at 103. Okay, hearing no questions or comments, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? We didn't get individuals on this one. All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
aye,
Okay, that passes 6-0. Okay, next, we have review of the per capita grant requirements, page 117.
Yeah, this is just basically a formality. We, as I mentioned, we have to fulfill some requirements in order to apply for and receive a per capita grant every year. This year, the requirement is actually the same as what it was last year, and that was to review this document of suggested standards called Serving Our Public 4.0. So our staff and I reviewed the standards. We feel like we meet the standard in almost every way, and there are a few things that we're continuing to work on. And this is just to serve as a review for the board to acknowledge that we reviewed the standards. So if the board has any questions about the standards or any part of this application process, we'd be happy to answer your questions. There's no approval required or anything, it's just acknowledgement.
Okay, hearing no questions or comments, we'll move on to the audit for fiscal year 2021. That begins at 118.
Wife, you want to introduce her?
This is Jen Mattinson of Waterbach and Naaman, and this is our second year. Yep, together.
All right. Yeah, so I'm Jen Martinson, here to present the annual financial report for the library for the fiscal year ended April 30th, 2021. I do want to start by thanking Blythe for all of her hard work during the audit process. The amount of effort that you continue to make to us does not go unnoticed, and we do have some review to process. Yes, so thank you. I do also want to say congratulations on a beautiful renovation. I haven't been here since everything was done. It looks amazing, so very excited for the library with that. So I know everybody has the audit report in front of them.
I'm gonna try to breathe through here while I'm talking. An audit is required to be completed by state statute. And really the goal of that audit is for us as your auditors to be able to provide an opinion on the financial statements that are presented this evening. So we have done that. We've issued an unmodified opinion. This is a clean audit opinion. It is the highest opinion that we can issue. And it really just means that these financial statements are materially correct or do accurately reflect the financial position of the library. So I do want to touch on a few of those highlights. If you guys would like to flip to a few pages, I will say numbers, so don't feel the need to, but
Just to let you know, they'll have different numbers.
oh,
That's it.
numbers? Okay.
Yeah,
so we
they
won't-
won't, because it's, I didn't think about that, it's in the whole packet, that's the problem.
Okay, no, that's no problem at all. So we will touch base then overall for the year. The governmental fund gives you a decrease in fund balance of approximately 9.5 million, with ending fund balance of 20.6 million, of which about 9 million of that is unrestricted or unassigned for you. The change in the general fund of the library's operating fund was also a decrease of approximately 8.5 million, with ending fund balance of 10.3 million. As the board knows, those changes were very specifically related to the projects that happened during the year. And the ending fund balance overall of approximately 20.6 million is still very healthy. You can also see that these changes were budgeted for. So towards the back of the audit report, I'm going to say page 39, if you want to maybe jot that down.
Oh, I'm sorry, they do.
Oh, you do?
I'm sorry,
Okay.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I put the individual ones in front of them. I was thinking of the packet, the board packet that they got.
Oh, the pages that
It
you
doesn't
different.
have the same numbers.
Yeah, I just want to point out, starting on page 39 and then continuing on to page 42 is where the board will find your budget versus actual schedule. So you can see that these changes this year were budgeted for. The general fund specifically, again, did come in under budget, and as well as over budget for revenue. So you'll see those pages there, as well as more detail on page 42. It's like a place to spend some time to see that comparison of budget versus actual for the year and where that happened. Additionally, as part of our audit process, we do review the internal control environment and will provide any information to the board if you have seen anything of concern, red flags, or things of that nature, and I'm happy to say that there were none. We do also provide a management letter, which is just our recommendations for the year on best practices, as well as an awareness this year of a new GASB statement or standard. The Governmental Accounting Standards Board has issued a new statement that we must comply with. So we'll work as like if it does apply to the library, that would happen in 2023, get that implemented. But again, just an awareness. And then we did also recommend the approval of the capital asset policy, which I know on the agenda this evening. So overall, as I mentioned, a clean audit process. Very thankful to all the hard work that went into preparing for us, and a clean audit opinion for fiscal year 2021. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments?
Just had a general question. We note here that past practice of the library has been to not include management's discussion and analysis, the MD&A, due to it being considered supplementary information that is not a part of the basic financial statement. And this does not affect the audit opinion of the basic financial statement. So my general question is just, what is the MD&A? What would it typically contain? And the second part is, why do we choose not to do it?
So I'll answer the first part for you guys. So the MD&A is really, it would be right at the front of the audit report, and it's going to really summarize all the financial information to follow in narrative form. So sometimes can be a little bit easier to follow than those financial statements. It would talk through highlights for the year as well as changes from last year to this year. Include some charts and graphs that would discuss major revenue and expenditure sources. So really just a summary of all of the financial information you see here in a handful of pages.
So why do we choose not to do that?
We've been told that it's an optional thing in the past for an organization such as ours, and also the nature of our board's involvement with and awareness of the finances month to month, where you get all the the year-to-date information, all the financials for each month. We talk about all the bills, and it's all presented to you every month. We didn't feel that we needed to help you understand the audit, because I think that the board understands our financial position, the way our finances work generally. So, Blythe, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
No, because basically on a monthly basis, you can see, and then you guys are very engaged in asking us questions. You see the revenue, you see the 6-month, the 9-month, I think it's the 6-month and the 9-month review. You'll see the whole picture of the library. So it's not just, you see it at the end of the year, but you see it consistently throughout the whole year.
We also provide the quarterly investment
Right, report.
updates, and we constantly kind of talk about our capital, reserve position and our operating position so that we can plan for capital projects, so I found that, it would just be extra work for us, but if the board would like to see that in the future, we can definitely work on that.
Since you're here, I would like your experience in that. Is this something that many organizations typically do provide their board? Is this a useful summary for the board to see? Because it is true, and I'm very grateful that we are all engaged on a monthly and more than a monthly basis, actually. But would it be helpful to us to see that high-level view during the audit annual process?
It definitely doesn't hurt. In my experience, it is probably more common than not at this point, which that's changed over the last few years, certainly. It is nice to have all of that in a narrative form. I know sometimes the financial statements can be a little tedious, and it's certainly something that we could help prepare and would try to take as much of the work off of you guys as an additional reporting piece that you would have to do, if the board does decide to do that. But yes, in my experience, it is helpful, but again, not every board is the same as well. And so, as Richard is saying, of what you guys are provided, normally it does seem like you do get quite involved, so.
Right, I hear you though, and I would echo that in terms of having, as you're calling it, the narrative part of it, right? Supporting what the numbers are showing us. So it's something that I would ask us to consider maybe providing, especially given that it's now more common for organizations to do that.
If the board would like us to include that in next year's audit, we'd of course be happy to do that.
Okay, do we have to vote on that?
No, that's just, are there any other comments? Okay.
Any other comments about the audit?
Thank you.
I would just do a shout out to Richard and Blythe in particular for explaining things well throughout the year.
Absolutely,
Easy
thank
when you
you.
have Blythe on board, and she does a fantastic job. We're very lucky,
Yeah.
Blythe is here.
Yeah, thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Richard, Laura. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, we have to accept it, right?
Yes.
Can we continue though? There's some other things I would like to,
Sure.
since you're here.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
Now, this may not be your purview specifically, but because this is all in this report, can we please go to page 162?
Okay, did that the audit? Hold on.
Yeah, it's page 26. It's,
Yes, it's page 26 of the audit itself, and it's page 162 in our board packet. So basically what this is the provisions here that talk about the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund, the IMRF, and it talks in more detail about what the formula is for these IMRF benefit plans. It goes into detail here about the tier 1 and the tier 2, and essentially how employees' pension benefits are calculated. So I sent Richard a message earlier saying, not of course for this meeting, but I think it would be very helpful moving forward. I went onto the IMRF site and I also did some just general research trying to find concrete examples and formulas of how this is calculated. I couldn't really find those online. IMRF has a members access portal where the calculator is there, but as far as a layperson, I couldn't access that. So what I'm requesting is that Blythe, Richard, and team, if we could be given something that shows us an example, so something like, okay, $1,000, let's say we had an employee that their final term here is their final rate of earnings, just for example, say, $1,000. Okay, obviously it's not going to be that, but let's say it is 1,000. And let's say the person is someone who has served more than 15 years. I just want to see what those numbers would be. I think I've figured it out, but I don't want to assume. This is very important. I don't want to assume that I know what this number would be. So if you could give us an example of that calculation, that would be very helpful.
Absolutely.
And of course, a real world example of a moderate range salary, that would be even more helpful if we could do that. The other piece that I would be interested in confirmation of is making sure that I understand how the annual, in this case, it's either 3% if you're tier 1, or under the tier 2 scenario, 3%, the lesser of 3% of the original pension amount, or half of the increase in the consumer price index of the original pension amount. My understanding when I read this is that this pension amount starts at a certain amount. Every year it's being increased by one of these calculations. And now that pension base amount is an increased amount, so that the future percentages are added to that. Is my understanding of that correct?
I want to pause and just comment that IMRF is a bit difficult to explain if you're not kind of
Sure.
in the weeds, day to day. So rather than try to answer all of your questions, what I would ask is that if the board is okay with this, I can invite an IMRF representative to come speak to us, and they can explain all the algorithms that they use and the calculations, and then really, get you accurate, clear information rather than you trying to fumble through it.
I think that's a great idea, Richard. I would welcome that. And I would also request that rather than just talking us through those formulas, I'd like them to actually put up some examples of
Sure,
the
yeah.
calculations.
I'll
and
make sure
how
that they
work
come
out.
with an example or a couple examples of what that
Yeah,
looks like.
exactly, of what it looks like, because there's, various potential scenarios here. This is obviously important, not just for the pension. I want to note, we're in a very good, according to all of this
Yes.
information, we're in a very good position, right? I think, if I'm remembering, it's 106%,
This year.
right, net pension liability this year, so let that be duly noted. And because we are looking at all of these topics, right, and I think it's very important that we as a board understand how all of our decisions impact this all long-term.
Total compensation and benefits.
Yeah, exactly, because I was looking at the OPEB valuation, right, and so this is, I think it's just very important that we, as much as we can understand IMRF, because it is very complicated, of course, we're not here to be actuarial experts and all that,
Right.
but I do think to have a basic understanding of the numbers that we're looking at, that would be helpful.
reasonable for you to request that, and
Thank you.
we'll get in touch with our regional IMRF reps. You have his email and contact information, and you can come in, and I'm sure you do want to give us a presentation or find someone else who could do that.
That'd be very helpful. Great
Sure.
suggestion. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Can I just say, would it make sense for you and Blythe to meet first? You obviously understand this much deeper than I do. For you two to talk first and then to sort of focus the questions to bring to the board as opposed to having the whole discussion in terms of.
I will, because I actually have a question for Mira about it, and we can do
Right.
this outside.
I think
We don't have
if
to
you
do it
guys
here,
could
But just
sort of,
to drill down for what you want, I'm thinking, are you looking for the cost of the library? Is that
No.
underlying?
No, I mean, I have read what is in this audit and in terms of our beneficial position with regard to our pension liability this year, and that's great. What I'm asking for is a general understanding of how these benefit plans, what the calculations are, because if you all read this and at your leisure, if you haven't already, if you're really needing to kind of get sleepy or something, I mean, read IMRF, and this is spoken by an attorney, okay, this stuff is pretty intense. Quite strictly, I mean, you know what I'm talking about, right? You
I
look
do.
at this,
Yeah, I
so
do.
if a person is less than 15 years of service, you've got 1 2/3%, but then there's a plus 2% for each year of service after. I think I understand how those are probably added together, but I don't want to assume what happens in that after 15 years. So literally, all I'm asking for, it's actually very simple, is somebody to do a presentation, just show us an example, show us two
We can
examples.
definitely do
What
that.
you're suggesting,
We can
yes,
definitely do
perfect
that.
then.
Yeah, and then the other question was the one about the annual increase.
And they could answer that for you too, because I know that
Absolutely.
they have seminars.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
We'll talk to our rep and get some information. I can share that with you in advance also, and we can refine our questions. And then I think this is good information for the board in general to understand the value that IMR brings to our staff who are enrolled, so we can definitely bring.
Very much so, and we're in a state, as we know, and I've said this many times, you know, this is a very important issue in our state. So as trustees, I think we should at least have more than a basic kind of understanding of how our decisions are impacting that on our municipal level. So thank you for
I
that.
understand.
Yeah,
We'll definitely get that information.
nothing too complicated,
Yeah.
just pretty basic understanding. So thank you for that. And then I did have one more question regarding the suggestion that we create a formal capital asset policy. Obviously, we've done that. We have a draft here in our board packet this month. And I was just curious, did your firm have any input in creating that formal policy?
So
Could you help us to
We
draft that?
provided some templates for you guys to use and adapt to what the library is actually doing. As Blake and I had talked in the past, there was an informal policy, so obviously the library was operating on informal internal procedures, but just having those things documented. So we helped with some templating.
Yeah.
And then they filled in the rest.
Thank you.
I didn't write it on my own.
There's some basic standard language with it's actually related to another GASB or that standard. And so there's basic language in there that we're required to incorporate, and so we help with that. Thank you.
Any other questions concerning the audit? Okay, hearing none, do we have a motion to accept the audit prepared for the fiscal year ended April 20th, 2021? Anybody?
I move that we accept the audit for 2021.
Second on that.
Second.
Okay.
Probably better.
Okay, Michelle?
Yes.
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 Okay. That's accepted.
Thank you, Jen, for being here. Thank you, Blake.
Thank you.
If anything else comes up, I'm
Want to have her
probably
stay
more
for
than
the capital
capable of
asset
answering.
policy?
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Jen, I don't think so. Do you want to stay for the capital asset policy portion?
that's
If there
completely up
case
to
there are any
you.
questions, or, okay,
Yeah, I'm happy to stay.
probably just maybe a minute.
Okay, the next matter is approval of the capital asset policy. Questions or comments on the draft policy?
Blythe did a great job putting this together with the help of our auditors and the templates he provided. I reviewed this, our attorneys reviewed it as well and provided just a few tweaks and which we added to the draft. So, if you have any questions, I'm sure Blythe and Jen and I can tackle them.
Any questions or comments? Okay.
How different is this from what we've been doing?
This is essentially the same, it
The
just
same.
reflects it in writing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, it's just documenting what you.
Right, but we're not,
I had seen something in the audit that when I started, I always followed. And then I didn't realize until we got the new auditors that it needed to be a board approved policy.
but so we're not changing.
No, I'm not changing any procedures that I've already been doing.
And we'll we'll write
An
this
appraisal.
on an appraisal for this
Now
coming
that,
year
now
too.
that the project is done, and we'll do an appraisal by the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Can I have a motion to approve the capital asset files?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 6-0.
Thank you, John.
Yeah,
There you go now.
Thank you.
You're welcome to
Happy
stay if you'd
holidays.
like.
Thank you. Happy holidays. Nice meeting you. Thank you.
Okay, next is approval of the business insurance coverages.
So as I say here, I mentioned this last month as well, we received the quote from Lyra for our renewal for 2022. It actually was less than what they had told us to expect, so I was happy that they were able to negotiate some better packages for us and coverages for us. So if the board has any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them, but I recommend board approval of the 2022 Lyra insurance renewal at a total annual cost $130,221.
Richard, I wanted to say it was very helpful, your background explanation and breaking it down into the different categories of insurance and just kind of the market forces, right, that are affecting each of those areas.
I'm glad that was helpful.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Any other questions or comments?
Richard, you've been elected to the board.
Yes, the Lyra Executive Committee is what they call it. They don't call it a board, but an executive committee. So I'm actually learning more and more over the years. So it's very interesting. Never thought I'd say that about insurance, business insurance coverages, but you know, that's where I am in my life now.
The next life you could be an agent.
Exactly.
Okay, can we have a motion to approve the business insurance coverage? Anybody?
So moved.
Okay, we got a second from Mira.
Sure, second.
Okay. I think we have to do this individually. Michelle?
Yes.
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 Okay.
Thank you.
There's a little lag because we're all trying to see and being courteous to who is
Right.
going to
I
motion.
know. Yeah.
So,
We have a very polite board.
yes, we do.
So I'm gonna,
Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna turn it over to Laura actually to present this next agenda.
Okay, this is approval of the Illinois Libraries present intergovernmental agreement.
So as promised last month, I'm back. All of the example contracts and exhibits are there. And we also, to Mark's question, clarified that the plans are not to have in-person author presentations. This is meant to be virtual, so as many people as possible can come and also to keep the cost down. Having said that, obviously our programming team is working on both in-person, Zoom, hybrid, all the types of programs. So this doesn't mean that we will never have an author here that we bring, but just that these big name authors through this group, it's meant to be on Zoom. So I welcome any other questions or if I can clarify if anybody has any.
Everybody will have unlimited access.
Right, yeah, there's no cap on, Skokie can only have 10 people and this library can have 20 people. You'll just sign up and it's open.
Anybody who wants to listen?
Yeah.
Okay,
You won't even have to be a card holder or anything.
okay.
As one of the participating members, do you have input on who they are going to mentor?
Yeah, Amy Kuster, who's our learning experiences manager, was part of the organizing group. So yes, it definitely has a say, but it's a group effort. So it's not being dictated by one library in particular as who comes.
I want to thank you for adding the exhibit. I was one who objected last month because last month it had everything we were paying, but it didn't have what we were getting because that was listed in the exhibit, which we didn't
Right.
see. So this is, I'm fine with that. One tiny question. It says this is a pilot from January through June, and that after this, it'll be followed with an annual subscription from January through December. What happens July through December of 2022? Is it a second pilot?
I believe their plans are to continue for another 6 months,
Just-
so I think there would be a,
Double it over
yeah,
and after
yes,
that it'll go.
and then
again?
it'll
Okay.
revert to the
That's-
year, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm assuming it's gonna be a success, and it will
That was my
continue. but-
assumption, but I just,
So in terms of the fees, there are 44 libraries in the state with an operating budget of over $5 million annually.
Mhm.
I'm looking at page 233, I think. So the amount of money you're going to have to spend, at least from them, would be 44 times 1,150, am I correct?
No, this is the cost for any library that's in that category. So we fall in that category, so if we want to join, we pay 1,150,
Right,
but not all those libraries will
Right, I
probably join.
understand.
Yeah,
but the budget available to this,
if they all join, is
Right.
what you're saying? Yeah,
It's
that would be a
gonna
lot of
be-
money.
for the ones for 5 million plus will be 44 times.
Yeah.
Okay, so there should be quite a few authors on this.
Yes, well, they've only announced the first two, but the plan is to have many more. That was just the first two that they have.
And you anticipate it's about $12,000 an author or per lecture or talk?
Well, our cost,
Well, no, I meant,
yeah,
how
overall,
much are we paying the author?
well, it varies from author to author. Some authors demand a very large sum of money for their appearances, but it does vary quite a bit depending on
Okay,
how big is big. So I don't want to quote exact figures because it's going to vary. Program to
Okay.
program.
I don't have any other questions. Anybody else have any questions?
When I'd recommend approval of the intergovernmental agreement for Illinois Libraries Consent.
Okay, we got it.
so moved.
Okay, we got a motion and a second?
Second,
Okay, fine, all in favor? We have to do it individually?
yes.
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 Yes,
Agreed? Okay,
Thank you.
that is approved.
Thank you, Laura.
Next, we are skipping, right?
We are going to, yes, so I mean, I can comment on this.
So why don't you tell us why you're skipping?
Yeah, I'd like to take this off the table because we were all set to go forward with this direction. Andy Garcia, our building services manager, and I thought that this would be the best way forward. We made plans with SNC and worked on this proposal, and then very last minute, I had heard from, because I had emailed some colleagues at other libraries about their experiences working with paving projects, and one of them said something very interesting, which was they worked with their village and kind of tacked on to what the village was doing that year, and it saved them some money in working with the village. And, obviously, if the village has a lot of paving that it's gonna be doing next year, and if we can from the bids that they're gonna be getting, we can probably save quite a bit of money. So when I did the math and the potential savings, I think it's very well worth us just taking this more cautious approach and going with the village next year. I don't have guaranteed numbers, of course, because they haven't bid anything out yet, and we still need to work with the village to sort out, what our project would entail and all the specific things that would, think that our project are part of this, and so there's always the option that we will hold to remove ourselves from the village paving project if we don't like the arrangements for the bid or for the contractor or for whatever reason it just doesn't work out. Then I think that we can always just go ahead and bid the project out ourselves separately. We might have to wait until 2023, but I think our parking lot isn't in desperate need of repair. It's in need of repair and repaving, but we can probably squeak by with another year if we really need to. I'm hoping that's not going to be necessary and that we can complete this project in the fall of 2022 with the village's bid and oversight. So we would have to. I met with the director of engineering at the village, and he was very helpful to walk around the lot and the driveways with him and Andy. And he did explain, there will be some administrative costs of them taking the time to oversee the project and put the paperwork together and everything. But I think that overall, just based on the numbers he was sharing about their, the cost that they had last year, or this year, I guess, this current year for their paving projects, we would save a lot of money given the square footage of our lot. So I recommend that we don't have to vote on this or anything. I just wanted to be removed from the, off the table. And like I said, I'll bring more details as I know more, as we work out the details of the village. Regarding the elevator project, that is a separate project, and that's not something that I don't think we can tack onto the village or any other entity. So what we would do then with that is have conversations with SMC to redo their proposal and only focus on the elevator upgrades. And that it should be a much smaller amount because it's not as complex of a project as repaving the entire lot and all the driveways. And if we're not happy with that, then we can find another company or engineer to work with to draw up the specs and bid that out as well. So, and that's not as time sensitive. We're not trying to hit the summer or fall months necessarily. So Andy and I will work on that and bring that to the board next year for approval. Any questions about any of that?
Is the amount on the elevator, you're saying SMC, do we need to bid that out?
We would have to bid the elevator out, whether we go with SMC as like kind of oversight, having oversight of that, or doing it ourselves. The projected cost of that project is more.
Yeah, but we have to bid out that SMC does it for us.
You mean like the SMC would do the construction management or the
Right.
bidding process? No, because SMC at this point, because we have an established relationship with them, we are not required to go out and do a qualifications-based selection process for hiring them again to oversee like projects, building projects. So we can just basically ask them to give us a proposal, and if the board is happy with it, we can approve. If we wanted to open that up, like we did with the roofing consultant, and go through a selections-based process to hire a consultant to oversee pre-construction and construction, then we would, go through that process again. But right now, because we have an established relationship with them, we would have to go through that.
It's a professional relationship.
Right, exactly.
We don't have to bid it out. And the other thing, that's my comment, that we were very happy with the services provided by them during the rebuilding of the first and second floor. And I personally, in my view, that I'd like to maintain a relationship with them over time, because I think it's to our benefit to have that relationship. So we have someone who is an expertise in construction who we can talk to and get advice from. So that's why I'm in favor of going right to them.
Once I get a proposal from SMC regarding the elevator work, I'll let the board know, and we can have another discussion about that.
In terms of the elevator work, and I'm not sure what or how the plan goes, but could we look at making sure that they do something to upgrade ventilation?
Sure, yeah, we can have a complete discussion.
Because just in our pandemic times, one of the things is you don't want to get on an elevator because the air just sits there.
We can certainly fold all of that into the discussion once we get to kind of drawing out the outline of the project. That's a good suggestion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, one other thing before we go to the next item. Michelle, you've got that little packet. We have to approve the bills each month. That's why your signature is required. And then we'll pass it on to the other members. So, just so you know what you're signing.
Yeah.
That's always good.
Yeah, I figured it.
Okay, next
So
is,
who can sign for me, or do I have to sign? do I have to worry about signing that?
We can get your signature at the next meeting, right, Susie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, the next thing is approval of the new March 2022 meeting date, and that is for me. Because I'm going back to making my annual trip to California with my wife, and we will be gone for 2 months, and I just as soon not miss 2 meetings. I could just miss 1 meeting. I'll be here for the January meeting. So for that reason, I would like the meeting date changed.
From March 9th to March 16th.
Right, March 9th to March 16th, 2022. Any questions or comments on that?
So do we get to go to California with you?
If you want to come, you're welcome. It's very nice, I like it.
We should,
I think we should vote.
Motion to approve, change.
Second,
Okay, all in favor?
Yeah.
aye.
That passes 6-0.
okay, thank you.
Okay, now, should we go into private,
For
the board vacancy?
I'm not sure, it's.
I don't think we have
Yeah, I
to.
don't think so.
We've got 4 applicants for the position. I think we've had it out there for quite some time. I think we ought to go ahead and interview Maureen and I. And I'd like to do the interviews. I think, I don't want to do them before Christmas. I just think it's going to be hard to get people here. Yeah, but starting that first week of January, the first 2 weeks, let's do all the interviews, and perhaps we can interview them collectively at the first meeting. Now, the question I had, there's going to be 4 people. You want 2? You want 3? Or you want us to sort of select who we think are the best 2? Or if we think there's 3 equally qualified people, we'll do 3. I want to cut down the number of interviews the board as a whole does.
I would defer to you, Noreen, and trust your judgment on whether or not you think it's appropriate to present 2 or 3 to us.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, well, we'll play it by ear. See what our opinion is of the various applicants. We'll make a decision.
Are the applications available now?
There's 4. What I'd like you to do, can you put them all together in one? In fact, I would like a hard copy, and probably Noreen would too.
Yeah, I would too.
Then you put notes on the hard copy. So if you can get a hard copy to me and a hard copy to Noreen, and then we'll ask you to contact the candidates and set up interviews for that first week in January.
That sounds great. I think Susie can take care of all.
Okay, is that all right with you, Noreen?
Absolutely. And then, we can, if we get the hard copy beforehand and can make those decisions, then it makes it easy for you and I to then say, who we want to come in.
It looks like there's a folder already in
Is there?
on your iPad.
I'd like a
something-
hard copy, though.
No, I understand, I'm just saying, but trustee applications, there's a subfolder for October 2021, which
Okay.
right now has 4 people in it, so
Okay.
the rest of us can look at it ahead of time.
Okay.
One last question with it, do we leave it open and receive additional applicants by the end of the year? Do you want us to do that, or do you want to?
Let's include them. I mean, that's my, but it's your view.
Might as well, right? I mean, leave it open. until-
Yeah.
If someone comes in, before we set a date for interview, yeah, add them to the list.
Okay,
How long has the position been open for now?
so, let's say 2 months.
Yeah, since we advertised.
Yeah.
In about 2 months, maybe a little more.
So my question, it's a wonder. Have we ever talked about, has there ever been a discussion in the past regarding like look-fors for when we are interviewing board members? I'm just thinking of similar to like a hiring process. What are some things that we're looking for as far as when we are sitting in an interview with a candidate in order to kind of make sure that we're aligning with what we believe as a board and the direction that we want to go to, making sure that we're having equity always at the forefront. So I don't know if this is something that,
We've had a list of questions. Yeah.
Right.
People.
but then what, my question then
What
would be,
qualities we're
right,
looking for.
what are we looking for? What are the things that we're aiming to really collectively move towards? And how that reflects like the vision of our library and our goals. So something to kind of throw out there. I don't know if this is another discussion point, if this is something that we wanted to just kind of ponder, but I'm kind of questioning it as I come to sit at the table to say, yes, let's interview candidates. I'm thinking about that process, what we can be doing within that process to really make sure that we're making it equitable, we're making sure that values and things align, and that we are kind of looking for similar things.
Michelle, I think that's a great point. And for myself in the past, I've been guided by the library's vision and values. And then those questions that we've utilized in the past, I think embedded in some of those questions are these other things. So I'm always coming back to what is the library's very well thought out, many different constituents and stakeholders of the library and the library community had a say in that vision and those values. And so I feel like I'm always referring back to those
And that's, and to that end, which I love that you do that, but that becomes very subjective. And when I think about, in the workplace, for example, I know this is a different kind of a hiring process in a sense, thinking about that hiring process so that we can streamline it in ways that eliminates that kind of unconscious bias, right? So what are ways that we can be, whether we decide that there are certain, I could give examples as far as like buzzwords that we're looking for, or we can somehow make sure that what the qualities we're looking for, are we going to quantify them? And how does that compare when we're discussing it and looking at it together as a group? Because what I might think of as a 7 might be very different than what you might be thinking of. And just kind of coming to terms with, let's try and equal the playing field in a sense, and making sure that all the way that we are interviewing is going to be within fair practices.
Would you like to see some kind of rubric?
We can go the rubric route. We can go, there's a lot of different ways that people do about it when they go through an interview process. But I think kind of making it less subjective and really trying to remove those unconscious biases that we might have, that we all have, to really make sure that we're finding the best candidate for the position. So just kind of rethinking that and how we do it and structure it and move forward as a team together.
Well, if we want to do that, then we should do that before.
Yeah, that's gonna be a lot of work, I think. And
But it could be really valuable work. And even though that's something that, let's say we draft something between now and then, and we use that as kind of like our pilot for it, and we can always go back and retweak it and say, this really worked out this time, or this, I really didn't like this process, but at least it's a starting point.
well, the only thing I'm concerned with is that we're getting away from looking at the individual. You have different people with different talents and abilities. And in some cases, if you have a rubric there, you're you're looking for A, B, and C, you may not find that. You may not find that in a very good person who you think would be good on the board. And I just don't know. I don't feel terribly I don't feel comforted by having constrained and going through this whole process of coming up with, we want this quality, that quality, the next quality. I think you kind of, when you see it, you see the candidate, you either like them or dislike them, and you like them for what they are, as opposed to how they fit into a rubric of qualities. And then you put them forward. And I think everybody will have different ideas of what they want for a candidate. And I don't know that we should try to push that into a listing of quality. Take a vote on each one. Do we want this quality? Do we want that quality? I don't know, that's my view.
I agree. I think also we have to consider that this it isn't an employment situation, it's a volunteer situation. And so our group of candidates are going to be coming for different reasons, and perhaps one of them might even bring a reason that the existing board wouldn't have thought to put in a rubric if we had one. You know, that's why I agree with looking at who the people are.
I think that's, and I hear what you're saying. I think that's something that, again, you know, rubrics can be designed to reflect what we are thinking. It's not necessarily that it's, you know, I'm going to pull this template and this is the exact thing that we're looking for. I think that's the whole goal of creating ones together, is that there might be qualities that you might have thought of that I might not have thought of, that, gosh, I really agree with you on that. You know, and this might not be something that we decide to do this round, since it's like, you know, our turnover is going to be very quick, but just something to kind of think about moving forward. And just kind of finding ways that we can, because I think the whole idea of liking versus not liking someone, I think that's the part that makes me a little bit uncomfortable. Because I think that there's that bias piece again that I'm really trying to remove, I guess, would be my goal. So just something to think about. We don't need to move on anything now and then, but just, you know.
I can't speak for Mark, but for myself, the whole issue of like or dislike hasn't got to do with me personally. It has to do with the questions that had come up before, the sense of the library and those goals. And that's where like and dislike come in. If there's something that feels off in one of those areas, it's not a social like or dislike.
Yeah, I would agree with Noreen. Maybe it came across it just like, do I personally like them or dislike them? No, it's do I like them for the library?
Mhm.
You know, you can have people from terribly divergent backgrounds who can be very good in this setting. And that's what do I like them in this setting? And I know you have to trust the judgment of the interviewers, and you may disagree with it when we present the candidate. And usually I don't tell you. I don't think I've ever told, have I? Told the board. I don't think we did, Gene. We selected 3 or whatever, but we never told them that we prefer A versus B versus C or whatever.
No, you didn't.
I don't think we did.
We don't even necessarily, I do think we've talked about the principles and concepts in discussing the candidates and why we prefer somebody, and that's where we get into the rubrics of, we need more diversity, we clearly emphasized that for several discussions, or, we just lost an accountant, right? It's a,
Mhm.
we need a, whatever, in terms of what's the board, it's as well as what's the board lacking, where do we feel we're weak, as well as what does the library need, and we could really use somebody with some expertise in this. So I think that's come up in the discussion, but by the same token, I'd have no problem with, and I know you don't want to lay too much, if in the next month, if you want to draft some rubric, send it to Rich. I know we can't all meet and talk about it. If you send it to Richard, Richard could post it to us, and we could draft some general principles of what we all agree are important to look for this time, and then we can debate that within the meeting and continue to modify that afterwards if you want
It's gonna be hard to do.
Well, I understand, but if she wants to do a
I
first
will
draft.
draft it on up.
And again, if we all agree that, yes, these are all, or, yeah, I hadn't thought of that, but you're right, we should. And I don't see any reason we couldn't do that in emails to
I
Richard
think we can work that out.
before you do the interviews in January, and to say, if we can agree these 10 concepts are really important, I think that would be worth
Also, I
keeping in
mean,
mind.
yeah, and also I was just gonna say that the interview questions themselves, I'll send them out to the board, the ones that we've used in the past. And then if anyone wants to send back or call me or discuss, the questions themselves, or suggest a new wording, or suggest a new question, that's fine with me as well. But I appreciate this discussion. I think it's healthy, for the board. As someone who doesn't participate in the interviewing process myself, I think it is healthy for the board to have these types of discussions about how to go about selecting and appointing a trustee. And it's making me think that what I can do on my end is find out more about what other libraries do in terms of their practices, and if there is kind of this thing that really, meets the needs of our board and accomplishes what everyone's saying, kind of that common ground, maybe I can bring that to the board for a future iteration of the interview process or whatever. So,
Richard, when you send us all of that, could you also just include the summary of the vision and the values?
of course,
Because
yeah.
obviously we have very voluminous kind of documents on all of what our values
Right.
mean, but just the shorthand of them, so it's all like in one place.
This is, yeah, absolutely. And this is a perfect timing for this kind of discussion. I mean, the next, year or so, because as we continue to look at our strategic plan and, think about where we are as an organization and where we want to go, I think it's natural to have these kind of discussions as well with the board.
I'll get that draft.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Walk away with homework. Yep.
And I'll send out the interview questions just so everyone can get a
that would be
baseline
helpful.
understanding.
Thank you.
The board meeting, the state.
Yeah,
We can go into closed session if you'd like.
yes. Well, first of all, let's get rid of rails. Next is rails, and thank you very much for the report. I assume there's nothing in addition to the report?
Absolutely.
Okay. So,
Very good.
any questions or comments on rails? Okay, hearing none, let's briefly go into closed session.
We need a motion.
You need a motion for that.
And it would be to discuss collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees.
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 That passes 6-0.